So here I am with Tony Visconti, record producer extraordinaire, has produced David Bowie, T-Rex, Thin Lizzy, Mary Hopkin, and hundreds of others. I don't know if anybody knows this, but he's also an Alexander Technique teacher and also my father. Yay! Hi Tony. Hi Dad.
Hello, daughter.
So you're there in New York and I'm here in Reading.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you for talking to me. Well, recently when I was hanging out with Robert Fripp at the Alexander Technique Congress, I said that we need to promote the Alexander Technique to rock stars who are sorely in need of it. Have you, who have you met recently who could do with a dose of the Alexander Technique? Or what kind of person?
That's interesting. I haven't been working with musicians lately, mainly singers, and I have no problems with the singers I've been working with. But in the past, I would teach the Alexander Technique if people were just slouched over, or like throwing their head back and squashing the back of their neck and all that, and I would correct that. And even a floor turn, I would do that as well in lieu of no tables around here. And I was trained very well in the floor turns and table turns, as well as the normal using the stool or a chair to teach how to get in and out of a chair properly, which is just the basic mechanics of having good use of your body.
Excellent. Oh, that's well. I was going to ask you. Yeah, how does it? Well, let's start at the beginning. I want to know the story of how you came to discover the Alexander Technique. I believe it was in Foyle's bookshop.
Right. Well, I had a very bad case of sciatica in the 1990s, and it was the 80s actually, I think. Yeah, late 80s. And I was living in the UK, and the sciatica was so bad that I was taking massages and giving compresses and all sorts of things to put on my spine by local doctors, and injections for pain and all that. And it got so bad at one time. I lived in Wargrave-on-Thames, and it got so bad that I had to crawl from my bed to to go to the loo, which was only about 5 feet away. And I just couldn't stand up yet. It was so bad. And eventually, through some massage therapy, I was able to get upright again and move about, but the pain was still bad and was always potentially there, and I was afraid there would be a recurrence of it. So probably without the Alexander Technique, it would take me about a year or so to mend. And not even knowing what I was mending, to me, I thought it was a back issue. But around that time, I went to the lovely Foyle's bookshop, which was on, I think, Charing Cross Road or Tottenham Court Road in London. I always mix the two up because I haven't been there for ages. And there was this big, they pile on books on a table. They try to get you to buy these books that nobody else wants, and they put it on a table as you enter. So I went up to the table. I was very curious to see what they had, and I bumped up against it, and this big book fell on my toe, on my foot, and I picked it up, and it was about the Alexander Technique. I mean, that was serendipity. That was fantastic. So I said, "What the hell is this?" So I bought it. I bought the book, and I read about it, and I. Back in New York, I went to a massage therapist who said, you do have a back problem, but I can only relieve the pain temporarily. But I think you'll want to study with one of my other clients, a singer, an operatic singer called Martha Bernard, whose father, she never went to university, but her father was a professional opera singer, and he trained her all her life since she was a little girl to sing. And she had one of the most beautiful soprano voices I've ever heard in my life. So I went to her lessons, And she said, you might want to meet Thomas Lemons. He is my Alexander Technique teacher. And I went, this is fantastic. I didn't even have to go very far before I met my teacher. So through an introduction, I went up to a place called Katona, New York. It's about, I don't know, maybe 60 to 70 miles north of Manhattan. And that's where Thomas had his country. So he's got two places where he teaches. But that was the one I went to because I was living in Rockland County, which was closer to him, closer to Katona than Manhattan was to me. So I went to his place, a big room, probably something like where you're training in now. It was a big room with other teachers there.
Oh, yeah, you visited us, yeah.
And not only did he teach new people the Alexander Technique, but he was a teacher's teacher. He trained teachers as well. And he studied with one of the most impressive original four Alexander teachers was Patrick MacDonald. He was a MacDonald student for about 2 or 3 years. And after he gained proficiency, he went back to the United States and started teaching in various places. You know how Alexander Technique teachers have to find not one spot, but a few spots to teach, to reach the maximum. And through him, I learned to communicate the need for Alexander Technique, to put it into words that the average person could understand, because it's actually quite, it's a different concept than just normal life. Like when you say part of it is caressing posture, the first thing people do is stick their chests out and they go, oh, like you mean like that? I've seen that one, and then. Yeah. And then also when you say, well, the thing is your head, think of your body as a train, and think of your head as the locomotive, and think of your spine as the passenger cars. And
nice.
that was a good image, right?
Yeah, I love it.
So I started thinking that way and realized that this was a wonderful, wonderful thing. My sciatica went away within a month or two and never, ever returned. I mean, every now and then I get a little pain back there, but I think it's just from bad use. I'm slouching, or I watch television like a C-shape, Yeah. I don't sit up straight when I watch television. I just let it all go, But I know how to fix it immediately. As soon as I get up and go to the kitchen for a glass of water, I put it all back in,
I think that's the misconception about Alexander Technique, is that you have to sit, perfectly upright, the Alexandroid. But, we all recline, and my teacher had a recliner chair, and you're allowed to lean back, but it's about knowing, like you say, knowing what you've done. So if you have a pain, you know that some old habit has crept in, and you can fix it again.
Well, it's mainly about the up. People, like I said, when you talk about posture, they start sticking their chest out and curving their back. So it's hardly up anymore. It's like bending a rod. It's not good posture. It's not good for you. But I never ever forget my up. In fact, I got this little. In case I do, when I teach, I get a pupil to put their finger up like that, and I go, your up is here. Even if when you're here, there is your up in relationship to your spine, Yeah. So I like that. I like the idea, and I get my pupils to do that now and then. And then they can do away with it once they get the feeling of the up, because it's a very particular feeling.
Yes, yeah. And I think so. Originally, you learn it like a series of instructions. We have the kind of, I call it the mantra, so the head forward and up. The neck free so that the head goes forward and up, so that the spine lengthens and the back widens and the knees go forward and away. But in the end, it's just like a kind of, it's kind of a wordless thing. It just happens automatically then. You just put the thought into motion. It's about changing your thinking, I think, isn't it? Most of all.
One of my most famous pupils is Daphne Guinness, from the Guinness family, and I told her the mantra of head, neck, spine, And
Yeah.
she wrote a song called Head, Neck, Spine. As a result, she was so inspired because she's done quite a bit of modeling, and models are trained to like have a good upright. It's although it's not the way we would do it, but they they could pose for the Sunday Times supplements and things like that, and do walk on the catwalk, even though a lot of those walks are kind of distorted, because they're showing off sexy clothing and they're doing all kinds of stuff like that. But she
Yeah.
understood the up, and it kind of was very, very good for her.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so she's like one of my famous pupils, but she's also a good friend.
She's lovely, isn't she? I know we've all worked together with Daphne, and she has incredible shoes to balance on as well. I would love to talk to her about how that, how she how she uses her shoes to her advantage.
Well, I'm sure
Yeah.
she doesn't slouch or anything. She's got excellent posture.
When you graduated, so I believe you trained for four years of 2,400 hours. Most of us mere mortals do 1,600 hours. But when you finished, did you find it easy to get pupils?
No, I was starting to get pupils in my final year, who they came in as what we call bodies. They would volunteers. They would volunteer for the training course so that we could work on people who were untutored. They didn't know about this yet, and a few of my bodies, after I graduated, they wanted me to teach them. They didn't want to go back to the school. So it was good. I got some clients that way, and just word of mouth. It was a time when I was very, very busy doing this. And it came at a good time because there was a kind of my professional life as a musician and record producer was suddenly, there was just not enough work around. And it wasn't a question of money. It was a question of being a useful human being. I'm so glad I had another thing that I did. That if one dropped out, I mean, as I said, it's not money. It's having a purpose in life is what's more important than money. And so I had a purpose as an Alexander teacher, even if nobody wanted to book me as a record producer anymore. However, times have changed since then.
Oh, thank goodness for that. No, I think you're right. I think most teachers train because it becomes a vocation, doesn't it? That we just discover this amazing thing and we want to share it with everybody. Just you become evangelical, don't you?
Ironically, my original teacher who really got me together, Thomas Lemons, is back. I don't know where he disappeared from. Well, he lost his partner. His partner died several years ago, and Tom really took it badly, very, very badly. But he's back. He's back in New York, and he asked me to join him as a partner in the business, And he is not the first one to say that. He says, tie up your loose ends, thinking that I'm doing the music business as a lark. Tie up your loose ends and come with me and become an Alexander teacher. Now, that is tempting. It really is tempting. But I'm still working in this business, and I love it. I'm a musician first, and like a lot of other people in the arts, I have studied the Alexander technique too, and it's behind everything I do. The way I'm sitting now. See, now I'm not sitting in a very proper chair, but I'm up. I've got my up going.
Yeah.
I could be doing this.
Exactly.
Like that, but I'm not. I'm going to do this instead.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I tell you, there's a few people that every time I describe the up business, they do that, and this is called lordosis, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
stick your, like you pretend you're a lord, and then, but my back is incredibly C-shaped at the moment to do this. This is not good posture, folks.
Yeah. Well, there are people, you can make people feel guilty, can't you? Say, oh, yeah, it's about posture, and they immediately go, oh, mine's terrible, and they do that, as if you're judging them.
I've seen it so many times.
I know that you're also a Tai Chiist. You've done Tai Chi, martial arts, and then Tai Chi. And I believe you told your teacher about Alexander technique. How do you see it fitting in, and how did he see it fitting in?
Well, Thomas Lemons did Tai Chi as well, and there was master Gu, G-U, in New York that he and several other people in my class studied with. Maybe actually two other people in my class studied with this master Gu. I never met him, but I did some research on him, and he was the real deal, from Beijing, and he taught Tai Chi properly. And there's a story that when Alexander was teaching in London, a lot of British generals and military people did spells in Hong Kong, Beijing, and India. So they were very, very British to the core, speaking with RP, but they observed, they actually, some of them studied Tai Chi whilst they were there, and they came back into London, and they said, they said, say, FM, there are people in China who teach what you teach. They're teaching what you teach. But FM discovered it independently. I don't know if this is the place to go through his story, but he also had agonizing pain, and he found a way out of it.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's what attracts me as well, because he discovered it out of necessity, and he was in quite a remote place, even though they're very kind of culturally rich in Tasmania. He had the theatre groups and that kind of thing, and they were well entertained, but he only had, he must have just had like the one or two doctors, and if they couldn't help him, he had no option really, did he, but to work it out for himself.
He, in his case, this FM, who invented the Alexander technique, was a Shakespearean orator. He didn't actually act, and maybe he did a little bit, but what he did was, this was a big thing in those days, the early 1900s, where you would stand on stage and orate. You would memorize and dramatize a speech out of maybe a Shakespearean play or some other source of classical writing. And he realized that when he was on stage, he lost his voice. And he went to all these doctors. He said, why am I losing my voice? I'm healthy. I have no head cold, nothing like that. And they said, I don't know. They all said, I don't know. They just kept giving him medicine.
And rest, vocal rest.
One day, I don't know why he was inspired like this. He set up 3 mirrors, one in front, one here, so he could see all the sides of him, at once with a glance. And he realized that when he was on stage, he threw his head back to reach the upper, maybe the balcony, the highest seat in the balcony. And he realized that he was compressing the back of his neck. And that's where you have a cluster of nerves. Your spine has nerves going through it, and this is the terminal that goes to the brain, and we know that the brain gives all the messages to every movement you do in the body. He made a revolutionary discovery about this effect of losing your voice through not using your body correctly, which is where we get in the Alexander technique, bad use. There's 2 words to describe that. It's called bad use, which also means that there's a such thing as good use. And that's what we as Alexander teachers are all about, good use.
I love it. I love it because it's so pragmatic, but like you say, there are parallels with the Tai Chi, the up. Like, how does your Master Ren, your teacher, he describes it? Oh, it's Chi. Is it the same as Chi, up?
Yeah, well, the Qi goes through the body in different ways. It's a cauldron. The way Chinese express Qi is that there's a place called your Tantien. Well, you have 7 Tantiens. 1, 2, 3, heart Tantien, 4, I don't know. And then right in your groin, you've got the last Tantien, which corresponds to the chakras that the Indian culture discovered as well. It's the same thing, so it kind of validates that they exist. And they are centers of energy in your body. So that's what he discovered. And in Chinese culture, the qi is driven up through your spine to your brain. And if you have any kind of blockage where, bad posture, slumping, things like that, you're going to block that energy. And you're also going to create a weakened body that is prone to disease. When you have a strong body and you're everything, all the chi is traveling upwards to the top of your head, or I forget, what did FM call this energy? It'll come to me later, but he discovered it independently and realizing that you have to make room for it to go up. You can't make room for it if you're all slouched,
Yeah.
So that's why the directions start with freeing the neck. Well, later on he says, I don't want to free the neck. Maybe just release the neck muscles, because they're preventative directions, aren't they? You free the neck in such a way that the head goes forward and up, which isn't back and it's not forward.
Yeah.
It's the only other things that are left. In such a way that it then takes the spine lengthened and the back widened and the knees go forward. They're all preventative to stop us shutting down. Yeah, it's a very freeing thing.
I haven't heard a better way of describing it except free the neck. And it makes because it makes a person think, and it's a positive message.
Yeah.
They might know, well, what does that mean? But it means don't tighten it. Release the muscle tension. It has to be explained what free the neck means. So every time you give a lesson, after your student understands this, you just say free the neck. You don't have to go through the mechanics of it. But you have to understand as a teacher when your student actually does get it. It rarely happens on the first lesson.
Yeah.
Although Alexander had a brother called A.R.
Yeah.
Alexander, he claims he got it on the first lesson. He's the only one in the world. And he taught too, but he didn't have his brother's skills,
No, apparently he didn't put hands on much either. So, he says. But we talk about, and I trained at a really interesting time because the pandemic happened right in the middle of it. So I was halfway through, and all of a sudden we couldn't put our hands on each other anymore. And traditionally, teachers have been saying that's the most important thing, is that you communicate your intentions and, you can feel what's going on in your pupil by using your hands. And we're trained in the use of our hands, but we couldn't do that. So we had to move online. And a lot of teachers, certainly here, are saying, I couldn't possibly teach online. But for me, it kind of opened it all up. So I have to teach online. I have to offer that because pupil levels are dropping and things like that. So it's really interesting because I think it you get your pupil to think more for themselves rather than just guiding them in and out of the chair, which you can do without speaking. They have to think and engage with the principles.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to have hands-on all the time. And again, like a good teacher, kind of sits back a little bit and observes what the student needs to do. As I say, some people stick their chest out. Some people stick their head like that, thinking they're putting their head up, and they go like that. It's just unconscious. Or things that they learned as kids. They just or hanging out on street corners. And some people think it's stupid to have good use. To have good posture. Yeah, slouching, especially in teenagers. Teenagers love to slouch, It's cool, man,
Yeah. It's also a defense, isn't it? Like, don't come near me. Ooh. Yeah. It does take confidence, and I often think if you're, I had this once at school. I went in and I was really kind of torn up about something, and I said to my teacher, does your mood lift when your use improves? He said, well, let's find out. And lo and behold, it did. He worked on me, and it just released all the, because you clench when you're upset or angry about something, and it just released that, and then it released my thinking as well, which was really lovely. So it does. We have this thing: the use affects the functioning, and the functioning affects the use. The way you use yourself, and it's a whole psychophysical relationship, isn't it?
That's right. The lessons you learn from learning the Alexander technique go beyond posture. It gives you more mental acuity. And I remember in my first year, anytime I would ride in the underground, I'd look around and I'd see people in all kinds of bad slouching positions. And I'd go back to my teacher and say, I want to put my hands on every one of them. He goes, yes. He goes, in our school, we call that adjusting the scenery. I was like such an ardent lover of it. I just wanted to put my hands on everybody and say, "You fool, head up."
Yeah.
Did you go through that?
Oh yeah, always. I just and after a while, you're just like, oh, to hell with it. If they can't, But then there's a frustration. Like you desperately want somebody to come and say, I could help you with that. I could help you. But if they're not ready to take responsibility for that, or to make that move, then there's no point. You've got to be ready to come. You've got to be ready to accept that you were probably doing it wrong and take responsibility for doing it right. It's not a therapy, is it? You can't just go clunk crunch like a chiropractor and say you're fixed now. It's and I was speaking with another colleague this morning, and she said the ones who come with an emotional stress are the hardest to keep. You uncover something in the first two lessons and it brings something up and they go, whoa, I'm not ready for this. I just came for my bad back. I'm not ready to deal with all this repressed trauma. So they go away and, look up psychotherapy instead. You'd hope they come back. So I think in the work we're doing at the moment in our teaching community is to look at things like trauma, emotional responses, all that kind of stuff, because it comes up, but we're not taught to deal with it, which is probably quite rightly so.
I remember my first couple of lessons, there was a part where I would tear up. I would start to cry a little bit because it was releasing emotions in my body. And I don't know if this is according to the book. I don't know if Alexander intended this to happen, but it did to me and probably other people.
And I think in his time as well, it wasn't really done to talk about such things, was it? So it was very stiff upper lip. I mean, I was told Walter Carrington, who taught my teacher, he said, if somebody starts pouring out their hearts, you just got to let it just wash past you and land in a soft heap on the floor, that you're not here. He does write it, his books, the books of his talks, that, you're not there to be a counsellor, you're there to work on their use, which has that knock-on effect. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. You don't want to get stuck in their problems, but you do want to help them physically cope with the emotions that come up, because they're completely interrelated, aren't they? We are psychophysical. There is no division. Isn't that a Buddhist concept as well, that there is no division between the mind and body?
Well, there's physical ones, but no, the mind and the body are one, should be one, and if they're not, you should work on that. Everyone should meditate. And prayer is not meditation. That's something I can't even relate to. But meditation is when you sit still, if you're able to sit still for even 10 minutes, and you gradually, if you push through it, because you're going to think of everything. You're going to think of your groceries. What are you going to wear when you get dressed? Things like that. You'd think about money and sex and anything. Your mind just is a machine that wants to distract you. And the most successful people in life aren't distracted. They're focused. And it's something you're not really born with. Of course you are. A kid is a little baby's focused when you could see someone who's 2 years old sitting on the floor with a leaf in their hand, and they're going, "This is amazing," but they can't say anything about it. But we have this. Everyone has this potential, and we see so much and learn so much in our first 7 years that if a trauma happens in those first 7 years, it could mess up a person for life. But that doesn't mean you can't deal with it. This is maybe going off topic a bit.
It's true. There's always time to catch up, and I think if somebody sticks with lessons, they find all these things come up, and they can see it through. It's like completing a cycle then, and it builds you up. So yeah, it's such a fascinating process and so rewarding as a teacher. I mean, I just love seeing people, as they start repeating my advice back to me, they go, or they say, what would Jess say when I do this? I'm with them somewhere.
And it's inevitable. Your pupils become friendly. I wouldn't say, maybe you could make a friend of them. I did a few, continue to have a friendship with them, and even other teachers, of course. But Yeah, you make good friends with these people, and inevitably you are going to have some serious conversations. They suddenly, once they get confidence in you, they start pouring like these bad things that happen to them in their lives. They look to you as a person who's a counselor. Now we really aren't, unless you've trained for that.
Yeah.
But you, as a human being, you have similar experiences, and you could relate to other people's problems and things, traumatic things that happened when they were younger. It's happened to all of us,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we are called the prime ape. We are the prime ape. We are the top of the chain of apes, and don't let anyone else tell you differently. God did not create the rest of the world. God created the rest of the world, and then He created us. No, 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 no.
We are of the world,
We are an
exactly.
animal. We're an animal.
Yeah.
We eat like other animals do. We go to the toilet like other animals do. And we fall in love and we fight and we don't fight. We make up and we kiss and we do all that stuff. We're animals.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Primary reflexes. Yeah.
We're damn smart, but we're still animals.
Yeah, perhaps too smart for our own good. Yeah, my teachers put it as one of my teachers put it as compassion rather than empathy. You don't necessarily want to feel what your pupils are feeling because that would probably be counterproductive. But you want to suffering with. You can be alongside them when they're going through it, and yeah, support that way. Yeah. So on to music. How have you worked with anybody? So you've worked with singers, so it helps them sing. Have you worked with instrumentalists? How does it help? Do you feel a difference? Like somebody worked with me when I was playing guitar, and I noticed a difference in my tone, for instance. Have you done that?
I think I had a couple of students in the past who play piano. And that one was he actually, when I was training, I got this old guy who was about 89, and he was a mess. I mean, he was all hunched over, sticking his chin out, and he got on we had a piano in the school, and he got it, and he played wonderfully. He knew all the standards from the 20s and 30s and 40s, the golden age of American songwriting. So then he was my body. He came in. Came in as a body. So my teacher said, "You'll be working with him, and you're a musician. You can speak on the same terms." So I go up to him, and then in those days I was like in my 40s or 50s or something like that, and this guy's about 89, and I said, "Hello, I'm Tony. I'm your teacher." And he looked at me. He says, "You're going to teach me?" That was. I said, "Well, what did you come here for?" "Yeah, I'm going to teach you." "What are you going to teach me?" I said, "Well, we're going to get rid of that hump in the back of in your back. We're going to get rid of that hump for a starter." And he says, "Okay, well, that made sense." He didn't like it either,
Yeah.
And he was one of my best pupils. He started walking straight up after a while, and he didn't permanently damage himself. I mean, your spine isn't a solid bone. It's very flexible, as we know. His muscles were pulling himself down. That's the distinction we have to tell people when we teach. It's not your bones, it's your muscles, and you're using your muscles in a very bad way, the pulling down, and sticking your chest out is another very bad way. So
Yeah.
you keep saying no, 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 no until they do it right once. You go, "Yes, that's it. You got it."
That's it. And then they go, "What did I do? How can you tell? How can you tell what I've just done?" Yeah, yeah. So I would love to work with more rock stars. What would you like to tell some of the big rock stars that you've worked with? Do you know any big rock stars? I mean, Paul McCartney apparently took lessons. Sting took
Yeah,
lessons.
he did. And Linda. I think Linda led him to take lessons.
Oh, right. With Wilfred Barlow, I believe you said.
Yeah,
One of
yeah,
the
he
other
was lucky.
big four, yeah. So what would you? I mean, how would you appeal to a rock star? Because there's often they don't want to talk about their problems because there's always a queue behind you, 1,000 people who can take your place.
Well, I would say it's hard to convince a rock star to take these lessons because they think they've reached some pinnacle in life, where they can't learn anything more or something like that. The only thing that might lead a rock star to go to an Alexander teacher is pain. And how are they going to know about that? Because I think the Alexander technique is there's no publicity about it. There is no publicity. Everyone knows, like, you go in the subway in New York and you see adverts for doctors, medical doctors, all along, like if you look up. I don't think they have adverts in London Underground.
Yeah, they do, yes, yeah. Yep, clinics for this and that, stress relief.
And you even seen, bad back, see this doctor, see that doctor, see that, get drugs, get drugged up. And
Yeah.
so it's hard to, if a rock star has to know about this. And, I'm a bit of an evangelist about it. So I talk about it all the time to the people I work with, especially if they've got bad use. And I was thrilled to learn that Fripp is an advocate, thrilled to, he learned this independently of me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so he was talking at the World Congress that we had in August in Dublin, and I saw he was talking, so it made sense. Like I said to you on tour, didn't I? Are you on speaking terms with him? And you said yes. So I emailed, and he said yes, I'll be there all week. So his friend Michael Frederick is a teacher in Los Angeles, and I believe they were at the Bennett School, the Gurdjieff School. Bennett, do you know about that? Back in the 80s. Anyway, they're Gurdjieff scholars. So that's how they know each other. And then Michael, I think, started teaching on Robert's guitar craft courses, which he's been doing since the mid-80s. And so it's been an integral part of the guitar craft. And lots of teachers have come from those courses. They've discovered the AT through that. So he has teachers on each course. So he was obviously shopping for new teachers when he was in Dublin. So he's asked me to go and teach in Italy, which is nice, next April. And yeah, you can just tell when he plays, can't you? His use is just so economical. That he said he's always sat down to play. He told me a story about. He said, I want to sit down after 8 King Crimson shows. He said, I can't stand up anymore, I'm going to sit down. And he said, and Greg Lake told me, you can't sit down, you're going to look like a mushroom.
Yeah.
He said, I don't care.
Well, as you and I know, standing up for 2 hours is quite an ordeal. That's why in the middle of our show, and I will say that Jessica and I are in the same band called Holy Holy. In the middle of our show, there's usually Woody goes out and gives Woody Woodmansey goes out from behind his drums, and he gives a little speech to the audience in which he drops the F-bomb about 50 times.
That's at the end. We have to wait to the end for that pleasure.
But Jesse and I take a break. We go to the edge of, where the drum riser is. We sit on there and we wait patiently until Woody's finished. Or sometimes Glenn Gregory makes a speech and all that. It gives us time to sit down. So there is a little break in the middle of the 2-hour stand-up marathon.
I've been known to end up flat on the floor. I think Paul Cutterfield was flat on the floor at one point. Yeah. I think we should introduce that in the middle of a show. Just like everybody, just lie down on the floor for 5 seconds and then get up. It'd be good. We did get them once, didn't we? In York, I seem to remember a couple of years ago, we started getting them lying on the floor and, straightening them up and dangling off doorknobs and things like that to straighten their backs out. It was good.
Oh, the doorknob technique is excellent. I teach that. Yeah.
Can you describe that? It's a useful trick.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what we lost the ability to do as adults is called squatting. We all know what a squat is, and children squat. As soon as they learn to walk, they learn to squat. And what that do is it's one of the best positions to be in if you're having back problems because it lengthens your spine. Squatting, when I can't demonstrate it here, but so not everybody has the balance to do a squat. So what we do is open a door, and the open door will have the doorknob on each side. And if you extend your hands a bit, and then by moving your feet back, so you have your feet, the length, at least arm length. So this is a great way to squat. So then you just slowly bend the knees, bend the knees, bend the knees until your bum is almost hitting the floor. And at that time, you hold it. Now the doorknob is up here somewhere. Your back just feels wonderful, and you don't have to squat like a native of, say, India, who they grow up, and China. Asians learn to squat before they learn to walk.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a generalization, but they squat a whole lot better than we do. We find it an uncomfortable exercise, but squatting is so healthy for you because it lengthens your spine, and because of the way we're built. We're not, even though we're bipeds, we come from four-legged creatures. Don't ever forget that. Even the prime apes walk on their knuckles. They have you see a chimp or a gorilla. Sometimes they walk upright, and sometimes they walk on. They use their arms as feet as well. So what squatting does is not only lengthen your spine, but it's actually the best way to go to the toilet as well. But we don't find a person who lives in a civilized city wanting to do that anymore. Nobody wants to squat. Yeah. So
the squatting toilets with a hole in the floor, right?
there's a company who actually made little platforms where you could put your feet on them whilst you're sitting on the loo, so your knees will be up, and so that emulates a bit of a squat.
Yeah. It's quite a commitment for us Westerners, though, isn't it?
Yeah, we're dangerously. Some of us absolutely. I see this online. Hell, we're not animals. God created animals, and then He created humans. I see these Bible thumpers, on Facebook and all that. It's not the case. So let's be honest with it. You are an animal, and you're a very smart one, but you are an animal.
And we've only just learned how to stand upright, but the tottering biped. But that's a friend said to me, our instability is actually our greatest strength, because you can constantly readjust, and if you've got that mechanical advantage sorted out, then you're stabilized, But if you're hyper rigid, then you're less stable. Like a skyscraper, is built to withstand wind and earthquakes and things. It wobbles.
Well, evolution doesn't stop. It's slow, but it doesn't stop. And now there's evidence that apes have observed us, and they're starting to walk upright through the jungle. Sometimes it's quicker to get on your two back feet and run, instead of running on your knuckles. So, and I've seen this. I've seen videos about it where they kind of like, apes are starting to like standing on their rear legs. So evolution is taking place as we speak. It always will. And God knows what we're going to look like in 20,000 years.
Probably like this with text, Nick. You mentioned Facebook and all those quick hacks and posture chairs and neck braces and things like that. I mean, I know how you feel about that, but you could say perhaps.
Oh, when I see those adverts for these braces that you wear on your chest so they'll throw your shoulders back, for good posture, I always write in, I said, don't bother with this junk. Find an Alexander Technique teacher. I do this almost on a daily basis. And if I get through to 5 people, I'll be very happy with this. But that stuff is very, very bad for you. These braces that throw your shoulders back and all that. It's very, very bad. At most, it's going to weaken your body because you're not going to be, using your muscles. You have perfectly good muscles that'll give you good posture.
Yeah, and I see a lot of quick hacks. Just do this one simple exercise, and there are no quick hacks, are there, to good use? You have to stop all the bad stuff and learn the good stuff. And I've reported them as inaccurate or false and misleading information, because it's just bad. It's awful. They're telling people you can do so much damage through quick hacks. Throw your back out even worse.
I don't think there's anything better on earth than the Alexander Technique for keeping a body healthy and studying your own mechanics, using the mechanics of your body for good health and good exercise. Like you say, Tai Chi and Alexander Technique are related because they're all based on the drive of your upward drive in your spine. Tai Chi is see, my head is going, I go like that.
Yeah.
I won't go like this.
Yes.
The head must be up,
Yeah.
things like that.
Lovely. And that, would you say that's your secret to longevity? Because like you say, be 82 if we tour again.
Yeah, well, my parents, it's your DNA is based on your parents' DNA, but it just changes a little. But my mother died at 91, and my father died at 89. So I think I've got a few good years left. I mean, chances are I might even exceed that. Maybe I'll die at 95, or even 100. But I hope there's no point in living long if you're like that, So I mean, that's why I think there's some very old Alexander teachers who are evidence that the Alexander Technique helps with your longevity. It helps with it,
Nice soundbite that. So, well, I think we've covered all my questions. Have you got anything to add?
No, I guess that was all your questions.
Yeah.
I don't know how. The only thing is we know over the years there's two. We have Amstat in the United States, and in England you have, what's it called?
Stat.
Yeah. We have to do a better job at getting the publicity out. It has to be on banners on subways and on the underground, and even a billboard or two. How expensive could that be? Just one bill, especially get a billboard when you drive in from Heathrow to London. And that, there you go. Alexander Technique, phone this number or something like that,
Yeah, brilliant. Bad back. Yeah, try this. Yeah, well, that's what we're working on, and you are part of my strategy. And we've got an Alexander Awareness Week coming up in October. We're working with AMSAT and the Canadian AT Society as well. So hopefully we can join forces, because it's gone through a real slump. Our PR, so hopefully we can get this. So my mission to get all the rock stars on board, and everybody needs to speak their language. We've got people who work with horses, people who work with people with Parkinson's, people who work on the mental health side. So everybody's speaking their own language, which is really nice. And you've got to follow your passion. Yeah. So summing up, can you give me a soundbite? What is the Alexander Technique?
Let me think. The Alexander Technique is a way to have a better life, which would include good health and good posture and positive energy, which would result in a brain that has positive thoughts.
Ooh, nice. I like it. Ending on the thinking there. Thank you so much, Dad.
I just made that up.
What? You made it up? There we are. Everybody should be able to say what the Alexander Technique is. Thank you so much for talking to me. Tony Visconti, record producer, father, and Alexander Technique teacher. And will you continue the good fight to let everybody know about Alexander Technique?
You left out fellow band member.
Fellow band member, yes.
Well,
the
thank
bass
you.
player.
Yeah, I'll always preach the virtues of the technique. Always.
Marvelous. Thank you so much.